Going into the season, did you think that the Buckeyes would rely on their defense to win games in 2023? I know I didn't, but that's reality. And we dive into how dominant that defense has been this season today on Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Victory Monday is back, and it feels so good. What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes, part of Locked on Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Monday, October 23rd in the year 2023, and this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. During today's episode, we will discuss how Ryan Day is continuing to adjust with how he coaches this year and why I am happy for Miyan Williams. But first, the Buckeyes are normally known for their offense. Any given season, going back for a few years now, maybe a decade plus, it's the offense that gets all of the attention, from going back to Terrell Pryor, to Braxton Miller, to JT Barrett, and then Cardale Jones in 2014, and then JT Barrett comes back, and then you have Justin Fields, and you have CJ Stroud. The Buckeyes offense has been led by some really good quarterback play, but then you add in a J.K. Dobbins and Ezekiel Elliott, a Mike Weber, or Carlos Hyde, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Marvin Harrison Jr. You're seeing that the offense at Ohio State, not just under Ryan Day, but for going on a decade plus, the offense gets all of the attention. In comes 2023 to interrupt the narrative that has been talked about and discussed about Ohio State for a long period of time. This year is not about the offense that is leading the team and winning games. This year, it's about the defense. And numerically, statistically, we can discuss, hey, here's what Ohio State has done by how many points they have allowed the opposition in any game. Let's go really quickly this way. This is one that I'm still marveling at to this day. You allow 3 points to Indiana. The next week, you allow 7 points to Youngstown State. I do believe Western Kentucky was the first team to have multiple scores in a game where they scored 10. Not Penn State. Notre Dame scored 14 points. Maryland scored 17. Purdue the next week, forget the final score of that one. 7. So you go 14, 17, 7. And then over the weekend, Penn State scores 12. And that's just one way to think about, whoa. So you go 3. Most points any team has scored is 17. That was Maryland. You followed it up with only allowing 7 points. That was late in that game. And then once again, Penn State coming into the shoe, you only give up 12. This is stuff that is not really thought about, and no one really thought it would be reality by Ohio State this year. But man, this defense remains elite. And we talked about it yesterday, or excuse me, a couple of days ago during the postcast about Denzel Burke not be playing, about how players would need to step up. We even know earlier in the week, we discussed how Cody Simon would have a bigger role with the defense, and he had numerous key tackles in this game that helped the defense remain and to stay dominant. But it's not just Burke's absence. In Burke's absence, what do we find? Jordan Hancock stepped up and played a bigger role. Jermaine Matthews Jr. stepped up and played a huge role. Lathan Ransom and Josh Proctor remained dominant. Davidson Igmanosin almost and should have had a pick in this game. Tui Malowau, Michael Hall Jr., Ty Hamilton, Tyleek Williams, Jack Sawyer, Kenyatta Jackson Jr., Caden Curry. The defensive line is a big reason why the defense has been so dominant this year. But I went back and looked at some numbers, and not just how many points the team has had or given up this year, which is still amazing. Some numbers here statistically in my notebook that I wrote down, and I am still marveling at, wow, this defense is doing amazing things. Now, we have discussed how They've only allowed one team to have over 200 passing yards in a game. That was Western Kentucky. Austin Reed had 207. Ultimately, the backup quarterback came in, had some negative pass yardage, which is why the total for that game, Ohio State gave up 204 total passing yards. They've only given up 5 passing touchdowns all season. Now, the past 5 games, that's when that's happened, but only 5 passing touchdowns all season. They've only given up 3 rushing touchdowns all season, only given up 1 rushing touchdown, one for Youngstown State, 1 against Notre Dame, and 1 against Maryland. That's it. They have held one team to under 50 total rushing yards. That was a couple of days ago against Penn State. We heard all week, Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, maybe the best running back duo in the entire country. 49 total rushing yards, a season low, best for the defense, allowing only 1.9 rushing yards per carry. This defense ain't normal, man. This ain't your regular Buckeye defense, a regular college football defense. These numbers are startling and eye-popping. They've only allowed 3.9 yards per play on the season. They've only allowed 3.0 yards per carry. But let's go a little bit further. 5 teams. They've held 5 teams to under 300 in total yards. They've held 3 teams to 42.9% or less in completion percentage. They've only allowed 3 teams, 3 rushing touchdowns all year. Already discussed that one. 4 teams. They've held 4 teams to under 100 rushing yards. Held 5 teams to under 3 yards per carry. Held 6 teams to under 4 yards per play. The numbers are there, but our eyeballs tell us that even without looking at the numbers, this defense is doing amazing things. I didn't expect the defense to win games like this consistently in 2023. The Notre Dame game, Penn State, what are we talking about? Yes, the Buckeyes ultimately outscored the opposition. But what is the biggest thing about this season? Even though the Buckeyes are scoring more points, yes, the defense over and over and over and over is putting the offense in great situations to win games. Giving the Buckeyes the ball back on the offense over and over and over and over and over again, and forcing quarterbacks like Austin Reed at Western Kentucky or Sam Hartman at Notre Dame or Talea Tagovailoa at Maryland or even Drew Aller from Penn State to look like guys that are struggling all day long. Not only look like, it's what's happening. This defense, hats off to Ryan Day, hats off to Jim Knowles, Larry Johnson, Perry Eliano, Tim Walton, or even though James Laurinaitis into the mix as a GA. Don't normally throw grad assistants in this conversation, but we all understand how pivotal and how important he is to the defense this year as a part of the coaching staff. This defense is different, man. And maybe later on in the week, we'll discuss how the Buckeyes' first 7 games stack up against previous teams that won national championships. Why? If you're holding teams through 7 games and only giving up 3.9 yards per play, 3 yards per carry, only giving up 8 touchdowns total in the entire season through 7 games, man, that ain't normal. That's not normal stuff. And I think those numbers will stack up when we look into them and dive into those numbers. Will stack up and compare to other teams, defenses that won national championships in college football, not just over the past few years, over the past decade, over the past 20 years, maybe even beyond, to say, oh, buddy, this stuff ain't normal. What also is something I did not think would be normal this year is how Ryan Day has decided or has chosen to adjust and to do what fits his team best in any given game. What am I speaking of? We discuss that next here on Locked Up Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Athletic Brewing. Now time for your game changer of the week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like JT Tuimoloau, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. Now, we talk about and discuss how Tuimoloau went off a year ago against Penn State. In the fourth quarter, when it's money time, when you go out there and you show everyone why you are that dude at Ohio State, why you are one of the best defensive ends at Ohio State, and why Ohio State's defense is elite, who can you rely on? Tuimoloau got the job done. He got a sack. I want to say it was the first play of the fourth quarter. JT Tuimoloau got a sack. Drew Aller drops back later, midway through the fourth quarter. JT gets his arm, hits Aller's arm for Aller to before Aller throws the ball, and it results in an incomplete pass. And then he had a flashback reminding me of JT Bosa against Penn State, when JT literally pushed the left tackle, the best O-lineman in the Big Ten by some people, right back into Drew Aller and forced another sack. Hey, JT is that dude, and he is a game changer of the week for the Buckeyes win over the weekend. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all time. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. If you missed our postcast, and I already talked to one listener that was unable to catch it live, but they definitely said they were able to catch it back in the playback form. Maybe you are new and didn't know there was a playback form of the postcast. It's on the Locked On Buckeyes YouTube channel. There's numerous playlists. One of them is Locked On Buckeyes Live. Hit that. That postcast is in there. Also, it should be in the main Locked On Buckeyes playlist folder as well. If you're an audio listener, Apple or Spotify or Odyssey or wherever you get your fine podcast, you can catch that postcast there as well. So Ryan Day has shown he is growing as a coach. And you would think, when you coach for a long time, you have been at Ohio State as a coach for, I think this is his fifth year, 19, 20, 21, 22. Fifth year. That didn't mean to really do that out loud, but that's kind of, wow, it's hard to believe he's been here for 5 years. It's insane. 2 years with Fields, 2 years with Stroud, and then 7 games as McCord as the full-time starter at Ohio State. And so Ryan Day has shown, hey, he can do some really good things offensively. He can make some phenomenal hires, and I think every hire on defense, and even him retaining Larry Johnson, they were phenomenal hires. But Ryan Day has also showed everybody that he can adjust at times when people think maybe adjusting is not what Ryan Day is going to do. And I heard somebody, I forget exactly who it was, talk about the end of the first half, why Ryan Day decided to, with 3 timeouts, take a knee and go into the locker room and come back out in the second half. You get the ball first and you move the ball there. Say, hey, there's still a little bit of time left. You can ultimately move the ball, but with the way that the Buckeyes offense played over the weekend and with the way that Kyle McCord struggled at times, I understand why Ryan Day decided to, hey, let's take this knee. Let's go into the locker room. If one mistake or 2 mistakes could ultimately result in a Penn State score, either a field goal or a touchdown, how about we play it safe, rely on our defense, regroup, adjust in the locker room at halftime, come back out, we get the ball, and do that thing. That's something that I think at times you might have seen Ryan Day in previous years say, oh, buddy, we got this. We got the guys. We got the goods. We understand we got some injuries on our side, but we have what it takes to move the ball quickly, bring the kicker back out there, kick a field goal if need be. Might be a long one, but we trust his leg. Or then eventually, hey, we can move the ball quickly and get into the end zone. No, that's an adjustment by Ryan Day. And I completely understand why he chose that. But also at times, doing things that are unconventional, even in this season, not just previous years, even in this season when it comes to, well, how much are we going to run the ball? How much are we going to pass the ball? How much are we going to do X, Y, or Z? Numerically, by the numbers, Ohio State ran the ball more than they passed the ball. Did you think that was going to be the case against Penn State? Now, I understand that at times the run game didn't work. Actually, I think most of the time the run game didn't work. Ohio State averaged 2.1 yards a carry. Mayan Williams had the most carries of any Buckeye in this game. Also had the best yards per carry. Wasn't amazing. It's quite sad at 2.6. But what is Ryan Day showing us? I got Marvin. We can rely on him. You got to work on those drops. Got to work on getting better throws, more consistent throws to Marvin. What are we also showing? Hey, I got guys that I can rely on in the pass game. Marv had 11 receptions. Cade Stover made some really key and big catches in this game. 4 catches for 70 yards, 17.5 yards per completion or reception, excuse me. One of them he mossed just completely, absolutely embarrassed and mossed the Penn State defender. And if there was maybe on the NFL Countdown, if there was a college football show that was, hey, you got mossed or you got embarrassed, hey, Cade Stover, that catch needs to be on the night. I didn't watch college football live or whatever the show is on ESPN, the nightcap of that. I believe Matthew Berry. No, it used to be Matthew Berry, Jesse Palmer, and Joey Galloway. I know they used to host that. I don't know if they still do, but if they do, I didn't watch it. I hope they had a segment there highlighting that big time catch by Cade Stover. But this game showed me once again, one, the adjustments of Ryan Day. In previous years on this show, myself, I know Jeff Hunt, and I believe Mo Murphy, the 3 most frequent contributors we have to this podcast, all were saying, hey, man, maybe you need to run the ball a little bit more. I understand 2019 was one of those years where I think Dobbins had 2,000 rushing yards in a season. That's great. But what did we find after that? What are you seeing? Pass heavy, pass heavy, pass heavy, pass all the time. The quarterback struggled. Ohio State quarterback struggled in this game. He ultimately had a shade under 300 passing yards in the game at 286. But Ryan Day said, hey, I understand the run game isn't working, but we need to try to run a little bit more than normal in this game to try to keep the defense honest. Now, Penn State's defense sold out to stop the run at Ohio State, and they were successful at doing that. Numerically, the numbers, 83 total passing yards, 2.1 yards a carry. Buckeyes only had 1 touchdown. I would think that you could say the Buckeyes offense struggled to run the ball, and it was a big reason for that being the case is because of Penn State's defense. But Ryan Day is trusting the defense, trusting his guys, trusting Tuimoloau, Eichenberg, Chambers, Simon. Got to throw him in there because he's been phenomenal over the past few weeks. Ransom, Proctor, Igbinosin, some call him Miggy, Burke, Matthews Jr., Hancock, and the host of guys that play on the defensive line. Ryan Day trusted them, and that showed up once again on Saturday afternoon. 1, that shows growth. 2, that shows a belief in your guys on the defensive side of the ball that over the past few years were easily the weakest link in trying to find what the weakest position was. That was a little bit hard because a lot of them were playing really poor football. But I like this version of Ryan Day, the growth that he has seen, the growth that he has shown this year, but also the growth from the players. Not just the growth of Ryan Day, the growth of the players and the belief of the players and the players that are on the field and the belief in Ryan Day and the players on defense to consistently get the job done. There's work to do on offense. I cannot just leave this conversation without saying that. There's also more work to do on defense to keep these numbers up, keep playing sound, fundamental football. If you keep doing that, this defense might lead the Buckeyes to win the Natty this year. Not saying it's going to happen. It's a big feat. It's a big accomplishment if it happens. But this defense is playing like a national championship defense. Coming up next, we dive into why I am happy for Mayan Williams and one thing he did over the weekend. Well, multiple, but one thing that's a big one. This is going to be a fun segment to close up the show. It's coming at you next on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than between 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. PrizePicks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code Locked On College for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Thank you for tapping in and tuning in to Locked On Buckeyes and making it your first listen or first watch of every single day. Now is the perfect time to leave a review. Smash like button on this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Leave a comment on the YouTube comment section on this video. But if you're an audio listener, leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Leave a comment there as well. It's a great free way to allow more people, to help more people come across this great podcast covering your Ohio State football and basketball teams. The basketball season starts soon. We'll start putting some basketball coverage into the show Monday through Friday for your enjoyment every single week. My gosh, man. I am happy for Mayan Williams. A year ago, I was not shy about making statements like, Mayan is my guy. I love seeing Mayan play. I love seeing Mayan tote the rock. I wasn't shy about that. I was very loud and frequent with how those comments came at you. The game last year, I believe, was against Rutgers when he had 5 rushing touchdowns in a game, tying it already a Buckeye single-game rushing record for 5 touchdowns in a game. It's tied by 2 players. One of them, Keith Byers. I forget the guy that the other Buckeye that also ran for 5 rushing touchdowns in a game. But Mayan Williams has struggled over the past couple of years with injuries. And this season was no different. He ended up missing time. I believe the first game of the year against Indiana, was not able, did not play. Played against Youngstown State, played against Western Kentucky, played against Notre Dame, played against Maryland, played 4 games in a row. One of them had a bye week in between it. Missed the Purdue game last week, and then ultimately comes back. And for the first time all season, has more than 6 carries in a game. For the first time all season, ran for over 25 rushing yards in a game. For the first time this year, for the second time this year, third time this year, well, my numbers are all off. For the third time this year, Mayan scored a touchdown. But that touchdown meant a lot. I mentioned there was one carry that I wanted to highlight, but it has so many different angles and branches to go off of it. But it was something else that was tied into it as well. Crossing the goal line for Mayan Williams in this game was huge. Let me get back to my numbers here really quickly. 24. Let me go back to, my screen, my computer is acting a little wacky right now. Excuse me. He did play against Indiana. He didn't play against Purdue. My screen was wacky. It was going back a little bit. I was like, wait, that didn't look right. So he's missed one game. It was against Purdue. He's battled injuries all season long. It was one thing for Mayan that I think in this game, with the injury that Ohio State, Travion Henderson, his injury, Chip Trainum injury there. Many of us would have loved to see, myself included, see Dallin Hayden in this game, but it did not happen. Mayan was a guy for the Buckeyes running the ball. First time all year, had over 7 carries in a game. First time all year, had over 25 total rushing yards in a game. Excuse me. It was the 3rd touchdown that he has scored this season. Those numbers are correct. Sorry, the computer was a little wacky before. But the first touchdown he has scored since week 1. Battling injuries, questionable, not getting the same amount of touch and run that he got a year ago. And what are we seeing from Mayan Williams? Not just adjustments and growth from Ryan Day, but also keeping his mind right for Mayan Williams. Because when you're battling injuries and you know that you're not, when going into the season, you're not the number one guy, and you see Chip Trainum come out there and do some really good things, and you see Dallin Hayden, a guy who is younger than you, do some really good things, it is really easy to kind of just pack it in, say, no, I'm not going any further, to say, oh, this is not going to be great for me, to say, oh, I am going to find a way to just be a team player, but I understand that my production on the field might be diminished because of the talent that is on this team in this room. No, Mayan is still going to go out there and do Mayan things. Mayan is still going to go out there and run hard. And even though he's battling injuries, Mayan's going to do what's needed and work through rehab to get healthy. And once he is healthy, man, watch out. Because I made a tweet during, and I don't normally tweet as much as I did previously during games. Is it still called tweet? I don't know. Is it a post? I don't know exactly what we call it on Twitter anymore. Well, excuse me, X. Formerly it was Twitter. Formerly we said tweet. But I know it went from requote. I went to quote tweet to repost. And I'm like, okay, it's a little odd, but it's a new changing of the platform here. I don't know what we call it. I still say tweet. I don't tweet as much as I used to during games. But one thing I did say during this game, I said, Mayan is healthy. Because for the first time all year, Mayan looks healthy. And I think that went into why Ryan Day rode him and gave him the ball so much in this game. 2.6 yards a pop. Nothing amazing. But 24 carries in a game where you're playing one of the best defenses in the country, where you know running the ball is going to be really, really tough, and you know that you have to fight, scratch, and claw. Not bite, not doing that, but fight, scratch, and claw to get the ball 1 yard run, 2 yard run, 3 yard run, and maybe pop it for a 5 to 8 or 10 yard run. Everything's going to be hard. This game meant a lot for the confidence for Ohio State's coaching staff in Mayan Williams, for Mayan Williams himself, and him crossing the goal line earlier in this game. The first touchdown scored. Man, it was fun to see. I am personally happy for Mayan Williams. I'm not only a big fan of Mayan Williams on the football field, Mayan Williams a person. I'm a fan of him as well. But also, man, happy for Mayan. Fighting through the injuries, sticking with the rehab, sticking with and believing in the coaches, doing what the coaches ask of him. Because when his number was called, the Buckeyes knew running the ball would be hard in this game. But when we need somebody to tote the rock and to get the tough yards, Mayan Williams could get the job done. Out of here, guys, on a Monday. Got more shows coming at you Tuesday through Friday of this week. Tomorrow is going to be our Porn for the Review segment as we kind of do a quick rewatch the game and see what we can learn and kind of empty the notebook on what we watched and witnessed from the Buckeyes' 20-12 win over Penn State. Wednesday is going to be a turning the page to the Wisconsin Badgers. I believe their quarterback, Tanner Mordecai, is out for a few games, suffered an injury, I believe, a couple weeks ago. And in the game, he ran off the field saying, I can't throw. It's never good when your quarterback makes that statement prior to leaving the game. And then on Thursday, trying to get a crossover scheduled with Locked On Badgers host. And then Friday, final thoughts before the Buckeyes' next football game this Saturday. Primetime NBC. It's a trip to Camp Randall Stadium in Madison, Wisconsin. Out of here on a Monday, Buckeye fans. You can follow me on X. That's what it's called now, at JStevens07. You can also send all of your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. Oh, if you want an early look at my college football top 10, I'm going to unveil it on the show tomorrow. But if you want an early look, go on X at JStevens07. I dumped that on Sunday, a little bit earlier than normal, for you to look at, dive into, agree with, or disagree with. Wherever you stand, my college football top 10 is right there on that platform. We're out of here on a Monday, Buckeye fans. I'll see you next time.